Okay, welcome, folks, to the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a public hearing. Today is Monday, April 12th, 2010. We have a very light agenda. There's two new business petitions on. The first one is regarding 720 Rogers Street, and the second one is 643 Broadway Street. And we also have a review for the Lowe's project on Chelmsford Street that we're going to take last out of order. So we will take them in order as posted. It's ZB 2010, number 7. This is a special permit and variance request for a sign. The applicant is Barlow Signs. The address is 720 Rogers Street. The petition is to allow the refacing and internal illumination of an existing wall signage, 2 of them, and to replace the existing illuminated pylon sign exceeding the maximum allowed height and size for Lannon Mazda pursuant to section 6.3, subsection 8, and 6.3, subsection 9 and 10 of the zoning ordinance. Would a representative of the applicant or the agent, Barlow Signs, please address the board? Welcome, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tim Sullivan. I'm an employee of Barlow Signs out of Hudson, New Hampshire. Also with me this evening is Steve Lannon of Lannon Mazda.
Welcome.
Thank you. What we're proposing this evening is, or seeking this evening, I should say, a variance for the freestanding pylon sign on Rogers Street. The present sign that's existing there now, that is the Saturn sign, is 80 square feet with an overall height of 28 feet. At that property, there's also a second freestanding pylon sign at 27 square feet with an overall height of 15 foot. We're planning on removing this second sign and not replacing it. And the main freestanding sign, our proposal is a 69 square foot sign where presently there's 80 square foot, so we're downsizing that. We'd like to maintain the 28 foot overall height. If you're familiar with that road, as I'm sure you are, it heads down a grade there. And if you cite the signs basically on both sides of it, the 495 Chrysler sign is about 20 foot to the top of it. And then the sign beyond it is actually about 30 feet to the top of it, that tall ladder sign, as I call it. So as it grades down, this sign will stay in a visual height equal to the other signs in the area around it. Also, the property is blocked from the south as you approach it. You've got the stadium and the chain link fence that kind of comes out there, so you really need the sign up above that to have some sort of visibility as you're heading in that direction. And if you're heading from town, I guess, if you will, out, there's that business with the ladder sign, as I said earlier, that pretty much blocks the entire building and the property itself, and the only visibility is the freestanding sign. We're seeking a special permit for this freestanding sign to internally illuminate it. If you look at the sketch provided, all that's actually going to be illuminated is the copy. It's an opaque background sign. It's the copy and the logo, only that light, as opposed to all the neighboring signs where it's full illuminated faces. This will be a lot subtler with its illumination. At the same time, we're also seeking special permits to illuminate 2 sets of letters on the property. We're allowed an excess of 300 square feet for wall signs on that property. We're seeking 1 set of 36 square foot and 1 set of 77 square foot. So we're at about 113 square footage of signage on the wall. We feel it's important to have some internal illumination on these signs, and their purpose is, again, as you approach the property, that driveway goes in and it's actually shared with the 495 property. So as a potential customer is pulling into the property, it's important that they can identify which one is the Mazda building and which one is the 495 building. Again, the illumination of these letters, the black letters that say Lannon, they'll be black during the day, they'll illuminate white at night, but with this black-white plexiglass that we use on the faces of these letters, it's not a bright white, it's more of a muted down white. And then the Mazda's letters on the other side of the building, or the other end of the building, I should say, are actually blue. And at night, blue isn't a real bright, it's not like a bright red or bright white. It's more of a muted color. And again, there was some suggestion from the DPD that we only illuminate one set. It's my client's feeling that it's important to have both sets illuminated because you're kind of going to get two lighting issues happening on the building. You're going to have some face lit over here and then non-illuminated over here that's going to be lit with a wash light. It doesn't make a good balance for the building. It's our thought that if we can maintain the internal illumination for both of them, it would be a lot more consistent feel with the property. That's what we're seeking this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I guess my only question would be just, we have, I think Rachel's here, so I think you've dealt with Rachel before.
Yes.
And what we're trying to do, as you know, as well as anybody, the city's in the process of changing the sign ordinance and trying to make it a little bit more uniform and to try to do something that makes more sense and keep up with modern technology and all the things that are going on with signage. So it helps us to get input from Rachel, whose specific job, I believe it is, to look into these issues and see what's more feasible for the city and those neighborhoods. So if you don't mind, I'd like to have Rachel just give us an idea of what her take on this is, and then we'll give you any opportunity you want to respond to that, sir.
Hi, my name is Rachel Kisker. As you said, I'm a design planner with DPD. And Tim and I talked on the phone last week before I wrote that memo that you have in your hand. And basically, we were just trying to perhaps come to an agreement on a compromise. We're certainly first of all, very happy that he would take the time to talk to me on the phone. And secondly, pleased that the second pylon sign along Rogers Street will be coming down. I also am happy to hear tonight that the sign along the street that will say Mazda will just have the text lit. Perhaps I misunderstood that, so I think that's a nice aesthetic for that street sign. However, that street sign, as he mentioned, is bigger than the 30-square foot on each face that's allowed by code, and higher than the 20 feet that's allowed by code. So we thought if we were going to, bend and give a little bit of a higher and bigger sign, perhaps they could bend a little bit and decrease the illumination on the building. It sounds like they have a nice design, and I see what they're saying about the balance, but we were thinking perhaps one of the signs would be lit, I think in the memo as I described it, the one closer to the common drive that he spoke of, to avoid confusion and to guide people right into the Mazda site when they arrive. And perhaps the lantern could be externally lit, being as that way it would be closer to, if it was put on the side closer to Douglas Street, that might, be less of a visual, visual impact for the folks that drive into Douglas Street to their neighborhood, to the neighborhood there that isn't as commercial as Rogers Street. So that's basically what the memo was supposed to convey, that those were two options that we would present to the board, and I presented to Tim on the phone as perhaps ways to compromise a little bit. We didn't speak about this on the phone, but if they would like to keep the facade of the building balanced with both internally lit signs, perhaps they would come down on the height or the size of the sign a little bit out front. Again, we're just looking for compromise. It really is just going with the existing zoning code as written. I wasn't, looking ahead to where we might go in the future, but just trying to, since this is a new owner and the signs that are there are bigger than code allows, perhaps we could come to a compromise.
Right, I think that, going by there, because I live in that neighborhood, it definitely does, they are kind of in a sunken area there, so I can see their point about wanting to have that. What would your position be, the fact that they already have the permit and have been, the prior sign was 80 square feet, and this is actually a reduction?
Yeah, and I said that on the phone to him, and I perhaps didn't make it as clear, but I think that's an improvement as well. So perhaps the size reduction is a step in the right direction alone. We were just kind of... So
your main concern would be how it affects maybe Douglas Road, if that...
Yeah, and just, if we can, just if we can stay within the code wherever possible, if we can just, detract anything that might be perceived as excessive. I don't think their design is excessive, but again, just trying to think about the neighbors on Douglas Road, even though I know Rogers Street is a very commercial street with a lot of competition.
I think as a board, we usually look for the hours of illumination as well as part of the thing, and I think that
That would be a
really,
good
makes a
idea.
big difference. So if we can, maybe the applicant can address your comments and maybe what the applicant thinks about the hours of illumination, if it's allowed.
And they also mentioned tonight, which again is, technology that I'm probably not, obviously is not as, well-versed as he is, obviously, but, when he talked about the type of lighting it would be, if the two signs on the facade are not as bright perhaps as I'm envisioning, maybe that wouldn't, be such a visual impact on the neighbors as I was perceiving. And as you said, if the distance and the grade there dips, maybe it's important to them.
Right.
That's
I
why I was
think
trying to be sort of open with my conversation with him on the phone and in the memo.
Right, I think we talked about this at a prior meeting, or at least and maybe another petition, but on that whole corridor there, and I think the planning board alluded to it in their comments, is we would like to avoid the competition as to who, the bigger, the brighter, and everybody's coming before the board to do the same thing. So I think we're moving more towards some sort of uniformity rather than, almost a contest to see who can capture the most.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point of the signs, I would imagine, so it's kind of a gray area, but maybe the applicant can address some of those issues.
Okay, I think the hours of light is a good point. Although I think what I gathered from, and maybe they can address this, I think what I gathered from looking up some of the other dealerships under Lannon's name, I think they stay open as late as 8, which isn't a big deal, but maybe much past that, they could agree to,
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know if
it's
they can dim things, or, maybe make a compromise. The building won't be as lit, but the sign along the street will stay out as advertisement. Maybe they can talk about that.
Half the year, it's bright out until 8 o'clock anyway,
Right.
so, all right, so thank you, and we'll hear
Yep.
from the applicant.
Thanks.
Yeah, with regards to illumination, Mr. Lannon has said that the signs will be shut off at 9 p.m. Their businesses pretty much are closed at 8, really? 8:30. 9 o'clock. I mean, he basically just wants to keep the signs lit till most of the employees have left the property. And also with some concern to the suggestion of illuminating the wall for the non-illuminated letters. The problem with that is you're putting a big floodlight on the wall, where with face-lit letters, your light is really controlled because you're just basically lighting the strokes of the letter, as opposed to throwing a wash light up onto the entire wall. And I'm not really sure from Douglas Street if the signs really come into play. I don't think you can see them because they're pretty much facing Rogers Street. You've got that other building that kind of sits back. I kind of drove it a little bit tonight trying to figure out if I could actually see the front of the building from Douglas Street, and I really couldn't. I even went on Google Maps trying to see if I could see a sight line from that, and it's the illumination. I don't see how it's going to have a strong effect on the neighbors in that area. And as Mr. Lannon has just pointed out to me, they've never had a complaint about the illuminations of the signs on that property from neighbors. So again, it's kind of what we're doing isn't really a whole lot more than what they had.
Basically, it's changing the name of the place.
Changing the name. There's a second set of letters on the building where originally it just said Saturn of Lowell, I believe, but now it's just saying, it's having the Mazda sign and just the Lannon words. And to be honest with you, as you're approaching into the property, he would really like his name on that right-hand end of the elevation like we have shown, because as you're coming into the property, you're seeing the Mazda sign, you're pulling into a Mazda dealership, and that's where he wants to get his name, and then the second name, or the second Mazda lettering over on the left end of the building identifies, if you will, the entrance into the showroom area of the property.
No, I think that's reasonable. I think that, at least in my opinion, that makes sense. All right, anything else?
Nothing from me. Would you like to say anything, Steve?
Okay, anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? Anybody here to oppose this position? And hearing none, That portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll open up to the board for consideration. Bill, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So based on the petitioner's proposal tonight, does the city have any reservations about what they're proposing right now? I know I've heard a couple of things back and forth, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on which way we're moving.
Asking Rachel. Rachel, if you could address us from the podium?
Yeah, I mean, it seems reasonable, and that's, what I spoke to them on the phone about. I guess, bottom line is, the sign is smaller, but only by, 11 square feet. It's still higher. We were hoping, give a little, get a little, that's all. So if they have the two signs on the building illuminated as designed, which, now that we talk it through, I think, it makes sense. We could just take the 11 square feet, shrinkage and go with that if that's your decision, or, maybe they could come down in the height slightly, even by a few feet, just so we start moving these signs in the right direction. It's really, up to the board. I was just trying to brainstorm some ideas.
Okay.
But I feel, in general, I think that, I appreciate them talking to us on the phone, and I can see the pros and cons here all the way around. So I think we'll be comfortable with whatever your decision is.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
Well, I think based on, the petitioner's been here quite a few times before, and I think they've been more than reasonable in their request. I haven't heard anything that I think's unreasonable. That's why I just want to make sure. And this is a new ownership, is that correct, Mr. Lana?
It's not new ownership, it's just, obviously Saturn has been eliminated by General Motors. So it's
did you previous-
it's a new franchise,
Okay.
same ownership. We've owned the property for 15
Okay.
or 16 years now.
But you never had the Lannon sign on that property, did you?
No, we did not, because
Yeah.
with the Saturn, with the lettering, the way Saturn branded their buildings
Sure.
was Saturn of in the geographic location.
But
so-
having Lannon up there is very important to you, I would,
Yes, it
I would
is.
assume, yeah. Well, I just want to make sure, Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure the city's okay with, I would just assume grant what the petitioner is coming before us with tonight, unless somebody else has anything in
Okay.
deference. Yep.
Thanks, Bill. Vesna?
Thank you, sir. I do appreciate Mr. Sullivan's willingness to assist us in the past in terms of the sign issue, because he seemed to be an expert in that. And yes, we have a city expert in sign. Rachel has been very helpful over the past couple meetings. I see this as, I do concur to some extent that the area, not just along Roger, but also in any broad Bridge Street and the Copper Square areas as well, competitions, competition between business owner to try to have a bigger and brighter signs and stuff. It's usual. It's a business, and in these cases, I don't see this as one in which the petitioner come to us with a bigger sign. In fact, it's reduction from 80 to 69. And also he's going to take the second pylon sign out. So I don't see this as a problem to the neighborhood, and plus the business owner willingness to close this, to turn off the illumination at 9 p.m. is very comfortable for me to support this petition tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Vesna. Corey?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in agreement with my colleagues. Here we have a new business, which I believe they've done their due diligence, reaching out to Rachel at DPD, and I don't believe their request is unreasonable. In fact, as the Vice Chair stated, it's a reduction. I don't believe they're trying to outdo the competition, but merely try to stay competitive. I think the design is great. Now, one question, Mr. Sullivan. Now, the letters on the facade of the building, which is Lannon to the right and Mazda to the left, so just the letters are going to be illuminated, Correct, those are individual channel lit letters, LED lit letters. Well, that's good. yes. I mean, that beats a sign with a white background with letters on there, and I think that beats that design wholeheartedly. So, again, I don't think the petitioner's request is outlandish. It is an automobile zone, although
the topography of the land states a hardship, as the chairman stated, in my opinion. So the height of the sign, I do understand what you're trying to accomplish. So I do, again, I think that is a hardship with you're in like almost a small valley there, and I do support it. But a few conditions will be, that I'd like to put in, is that the sign will be off at 9 p.m., and there will be no other banners or streamers or signage. I think that will help us out, Rachel, correct? And that's all there is to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
through you. You said something, Mr. Sullivan, about the color of the Mazda and the Lannon
Correct.
letters. What?
If you drive around town, blue letters aren't notorious for being a really bright sign. You know, in fact, there's some signs out there that has one word in blue and one word in red, and you can barely read the blue. It's not a bright color. And in fact, from a design standpoint, I always cringe a little bit when I see a client come in with blue lettering. And on this building, the blue lettering will probably work. That's the Mazda brand color, but it's not a real bright letter. The Lannon letters are lit with it's called a day-night plexiglass is what the face is. And what it is it's black during the day, but it's a very translucent at night, so it lights white. But even the white is not a bright white, it's a muted white. If you were to have a set of the black letters and a white set of letters and you lit them both at the same time, the white would be probably 25% brighter than the black white, if you will. So from an illumination standpoint, it's not going to be a terribly bright sign on the building. Again, they're all lit with the LEDs, very few neon signs out there nowadays.
Thank you. Well, and just to clarify, the two pole signs shown in photos 12 and 13, those are actually proposed to be removed, is that correct?
Grab my paperwork here. Well, there's one freestanding sign. Actually, the 12 and 13 signs, those are actually banners on the poles, which are actually already down because they're no longer the used Saturn. If you look at, you can't even really see that freestanding sign, the second freestanding sign in these photos. Oh, here you are, photo number 3 on the first page. That's the freestanding sign that will be removed.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Well, Mr. Chairman, support this petition as well. I think the removal of the second pylon sign, confirmation that the pole signs will.
Right, we should put so just so you're clear, we're making those as conditions if it's approved, so to remove all the excess signage, what you put down, and the banners.
Yes.
Okay, is that?
Yes,
Okay.
I see the hardship as well based on the topography of the site. Thank you.
Okay. And Rick, anything?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have to take 2 votes on this. The first vote we'll take if we have a motion is for the special permit.
Make a motion to approve the special permit, Mr. Chairman?
Second the motion.
And I need a roll call. Kim, please.
Approve.
Approve.
Approve with the conditions that the applicant will remove all the excess signage and banners on the property, and that the lights are turned off no later than 9 p.m. I'm amending the motion, so we should start with a new roll call.
Approved with conditions.
Approve with conditions.
Approve with conditions.
Approve with condition.
Approve with conditions.
Okay, So you've been unanimously approved for the special permit with those conditions. Now I would need a motion for the variance based on the topography of the land demonstrating a hardship to the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the variance on the grounds of a hardship being the topography of the land.
Second the motion.
And we want to do these with the same conditions as well.
With the following conditions, that all the signage be turned off at 9 PM, and all other banners and excess signage be removed.
And we might need another second just to clarify the record, Bill.
I'll second the motion.
And roll call, please.
Approved with conditions.
Approved with conditions.
Approve with conditions?
Approve with condition.
Approve with conditions.
Okay, sir, you've been unanimously approved for both the special permit and the variance. We just need you to come up and sign a form that the clerk, Mr. Belanger, will have. And if you could just sign that, date it, and hand it to Kim, you'd be all set. Good luck.
Thank you.
Do you have that thing? Do you still do it?
Yeah, I just kept.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next petition we have is ZB 2010-000008, special permit and variance request by applicant Steve Zagoras. The address of the property is 643 Broadway Street. The petition is to reestablish relief previously granted, allowing the extension of a pre-existing non-conforming use by converting a 2 to a 3 family and a 4 to a 5 family, and to vary the required parking pursuant to section 6 and 4.5.2 of the zone ordinance. Welcome, sir.
Hello, my name is Steven Segoras, and I had appeared before the zoning board in 2002 to get this special permit and variances for these properties. And basically, we had completed, well, in 2002, we had got the, we had actually had another 2-family that was converted to a 3-family, which right after getting the request accepted, basically, we had converted that to a 3-family, and it went so much over budget. We had some other apartments that were vacant at the time, so we decided not to do it right away. And we didn't realize that it was gonna, that the time was gonna elapse and we weren't allowed to do it. Many years later, when we tried to do it, basically we couldn't, because we had a 24-month period, if I'm not mistaken, and we hadn't pulled the permits, even though I thought that when I had filed it at the Registry of Deeds in the city clerk's office, I was supposed to get a permit afterwards pulled for the work that was gonna be done, and I never did. So basically, I'm hoping that we could get this again, and basically, we do not have enough parking, but I do have a list here. I should have probably made a copy of for everybody, just showing that we do have full vacancy of 12 apartments right now, and we just basically make the parking that we have work, because we do have quite a bit of parking. It's just that when somebody comes and has only one car, or another apartment doesn't have any cars, and then basically we try to make it work for our parking to be enough, in other words, so nobody has to park on the street or the sidewalk or anything. And right now with the 12 units that are all being rented at this time, everybody does have parking in the parking lot. And on the plot plan, you'll see, I'm not sure why the surveyor did it, but he put 5 parking spots back to back. All of those are for the first floor of 635 Broadway Street right now. That's, we designate that parking to that first floor unit. And that's about it.
We did get a comment from the engineer's office. Isn't the way this is designed, doesn't that kind of gridlock you in a little bit, or is?
On the 5 parking spots?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, but it's, basically, those 5 parking spots, though, I never told him to put those there, to be honest with you. they're for 635 Broadway first floor, so in other words, they're not for any other units that could be blocked in or anything of that nature, but, you know, if the second person wants to leave, obviously they have to bother somebody in their family to go and move their vehicle. And,
Can you tell us a little bit about the, you describe it as the extension of a pre-existing non-conforming use by the conversion? What do you mean by that?
Sure. The conversion, it was the third floor unit. It's a three-family that the third floor unit was always vacant and just kind of, just bare walls of 2x4s and whatnot. And it was big enough. I have the I had the plans drawn up to see how we can make it into a two-bedroom. And basically, we also have, in that parking lot, there's 8 spots that aren't even right now used for the apartments. In other words, we use them for customers of Broadway Pizza, but at the same time, if I rented 2 more units, 8 spots would be more than enough to not upset everybody else that's in those units right now and keep them from having parking or anything of that nature.
What about parking along the street? Did you have anything there?
On Phillip Street, there's
on
parking
street?
also, but in the wintertime, it becomes a problem. So most of 9 Phillip Street unit that we have, there's 3 apartments, first, second, and third floor. That's where they usually park, but they do have spots designated in the parking lot also. But there is, right along the building of Broadway Pizza, which is 647, 651, 653 Broadway Street, 9 Phillip Street does usually park in those spots. It's easier than them walking around the building, basically, but again, during the winter time, you're not supposed to be parked on the street. They don't plow that street either on 9 Phillip Street, but with the amount of parking that we have, we just kind of juggle it around, make sure we don't rent to somebody that has 10 cars or anything of that nature, and that way we don't get complaints from our tenants every single day. Except in a snow emergency when neighbors take the parking spots. Other than that, I have a list of basically which parking spots each tenant has at this moment in time. I don't know if that helps at all, but
I'm not confused, but I'm just a little bit, just concerned about how the application was filled out. If you're it kind of throws everything into one paragraph and with multiple requests. So, there's procedural issues that we just need to keep the record straight
I understand.
as to what we're doing. Is this the way you did it last time?
Yeah, basically. Basically, it was written up like that, except the zoning is now TTF, and I believe before it was, I'm sorry, yeah, basically it was filled out kind of the same as the first time that I had went for it in 2002. And I know certain things did change over time.
Okay, Kim, can we verify what zone this is in? And take your time. I just want to, my thought was that it was in a multifamily.
The multifamily meaning the unit to be converted?
Are they in 2 separate zones?
They're two different buildings though. The 2-family to be converted to 3-family is the address of 643 Broadway Street. And that would be the 3rd floor to be converted, in other words. And then the 4-family to 5-family is in the building of 647, 653 Broadway Street. So they're 2 different buildings, but
So, are there 3 different buildings here?
no, well, the 3rd one was 9 Phillip Street, which was completed. The construction was completed on it after 2002 when we had got the special permits and the variances for that.
Well, that's what confused me with the application, so I'm just trying to make sure that whatever we do here is done
Correctly, I understand.
procedurally
Yes.
correctly. So,
Now, Mr. Chairman, it appears that he's asking for relief on 2 of the 4 buildings?
Basically, yes, on 2 of the 4 buildings. Before, it was 3 of the 4 buildings in 2002. I'm sorry,
I guess I'm reading the application, and I'm just going by, it says 643 Broadway Street,
Yes.
647 Broadway Street, and 653 Broadway
It's
Street.
a little confusing because that building right next door, the 4-unit to 5-unit, has 3 addresses on it. It's got 647, 651, and 653 address on it.
Oh, so it should
That's
be
why.
also known as, or otherwise known as?
Yes, exactly. I didn't want to confuse it any further because it's, basically, they refer to it all as 643 Broadway Street, AKA 9 Phillips, 647 Broadway Street, 653 Broadway Street.
I guess my only concern is that maybe some of the board members can give some input, but if it's located in a 2-family district, I don't think that we have the authority to make a use change, but if it's in a multi-family unit, I believe that we do. So I think my question is, I just want to verify from your application, because we can only go by what you have, and then we know what zone it's in, but I want to know what you've put in. Does anybody? Go ahead, Rick.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. The building out back that faces Phillips Street, was that part of the original?
It was part of the original.
So
In
you
2000
did do the work on
We
that
did do the
building?
work to that 3rd floor of 9 Phillips Street. But we never continued to 643. That was the next one we were going to work on. And then 647, 653, which is one building, was the last one we were going to do if we completed them, that is.
Mike-
And now we have full vacancy.
My question, Mr. Chairman, is, he brought all the stuff down to the Registry of Deeds. They were done as like a
Yes,
package.
at then.
So
at
he
that
did
time.
pull a permit for the first building that was in it, so did he, in my words, did he seal the deal by just starting that back one, and then just because he didn't do the front one, should he even be in front of us? I mean, because he did pull a permit, but he didn't pull a permit for the other 2 buildings, but in essence, he was given a variance for all 3 buildings. He was given relief for all those 3 buildings.
So what you're saying is he already has what he needs?
I think because of, just talking out loud, that building out back, if he would have done nothing and just went to the Registry of Deeds, he would be in front of us again, but because he did the process out back, which was part of the original petition, where he put all 3 together, they weren't separate.
Right.
I think legally, he's all right. I don't,
And they wouldn't expire?
and they wouldn't expire because at least he did one building and pulled the permit, but it was as a package, you know? I think the package is,
Yeah, we don't want, I think, and I agree with Rick, I'm confused with something here, and I don't
I-
want to put you in a situation where we make it, you leave here and you think that you got
Well,
relief,
I
but we
understand.
tied you
No,
up,
There's
so.
no hard feelings, obviously, whatever happens is gonna happen, but I'm gonna try it again whenever I can down the road and hope for the
Yeah,
best.
well, I mean, the good news is you may
I think he's all set, Mr. Chairman.
you may not need any relief, but I think the best way to, I mean, well, everybody can have any input they want, and anybody who came in here to speak in favor or against it can speak tonight, but we may need to just get a continuance to the next meeting,
Okay.
ask you to clarify it for us, and, meet with maybe some folks in the building department, or we could even put a request into the law department if we had to figure out what the current status is, but, we could probably figure it out ourselves, but I can't make heads or tails of this
It's confusing with all the
application to the
addresses.
plan. Something doesn't jive, so,
Yeah.
well, all right, let's see what everybody else has to say.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just
Go
one
ahead.
more question. So, I'm saying 9 Phillips, was that a 2, or 3?
Yes,
Okay, I just want to clarify, thank you.
you're welcome.
Now, the question I have, Mr. Chairman, now, you're looking to seek relief on another 2 to a 3 family. Now, what does that consist of, a 1, 2, 3? What's the situation there?
That one is, right now, a 2-family. The first floor and second floor are both 3-bedroom units, and they're
Okay.
both rented. And the third floor was gonna be a 2-bedroom unit.
Okay, so it's a 2-bedroom proposed there, okay.
And then
How about the 4 to a 5?
4 to the 5 would just be basically a studio apartment on the 3rd floor.
Okay, so you're looking at a studio, both on the 3rd floor, a studio and a 2-bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And on your I guess the application is what I'm concerned about, because it has the district zone, and we have the book, so we could check it, but something doesn't add up, because you have TTF, and then traditional neighborhood district, is that?
Traditional two-family.
Right, but this, he has traditional neighborhood district, so, in parentheses, in the application, which confuses me, because there's no such thing that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And, if it's a two-family, then hopefully you don't need relief from the board, because I don't know that we have the authority to do that. But we can check on that.
Mr. Chairman, I think there would be pre-existing non-conformings then, because you have a 4 out front, you have a 3 out back, you have a 3 to a 4, and then you have a 3 on the other side, so it's already pre-existing non-conforming.
It's already being used as, it's more than a two-family, is what you're
Correct.
saying,
And
yeah.
that was, I think that was through the new zoning, I forget when that was done. That was
2004.
2004, right?
Okay.
So he was in 2002, so that's when they changed the zones.
All right, well, maybe I'll see if anybody wants to address us, and then maybe we can entertain a short continuance and see if maybe we could straighten this out a little, just to, at least to clarify it, and make some decisions once we know what we're looking at here. Anybody here wishes to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition?
Oops, sure.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. Excuse me. I wish to be recording opposition to it at this time and ask that you do have a continuance on this. My reading of this application says regarding property located 643 Broadway Street. And that, since you've already mentioned that another number, 645, I believe, Broadway Street. The first one deals with a 2 to 3 family conversion. The second is a separate building, and I think that that needs to be listed on your agenda as the property located, so that these two are not located at the same building. And I think that that needs to be clarified too. And I believe at the last planning board meeting, they may have made a recommendation too. And I don't remember if it was to deny or no decision on that. But I would like to see a continuance made on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? So hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Any comments from the board? Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I look at this plot plan, I guess I don't think the plot plan matches up with the application, for instance, that you had mentioned. Now, if I see unit, 3.5 story at number 651. Now, 651's not even mentioned. They talk about doing a 4 to a 5 at 647 and 653, which I'm assuming, I drove by the property, I'm assuming it's that same building, but, you know, when we're looking at plans, I think we should have more definitive plans in front of us, exactly what's in the application matches up with the description of the buildings. And, for instance, on the parking, you show spots 12 through 15 out back. If I recall, going out there, you have all your dumpsters lined up there. So, you know.
Go ahead, you can respond.
I guess I'm assuming, I know you mentioned something about older plans and.
Yeah, no, I basically.
You have all your dumpsters out back. In fact, you have, it looks like there's supposed to be a spot in the corner, and I don't know how somebody can park in the corner if you got a dumpster coming back there, but anyways.
No, you're right about that. On spot where it says number 12 and which would be 13 and 14, there's the 2 dumpsters back there, and basically then where 15 is, there's actually, this plot plan is a little bit off right there, and I was rushing. Basically, he took almost a year to get this thing to me. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but 15, 16, and 17 would be diagonal where it says 35.6 feet, and basically there's 3 spots right there. Altogether, the number of spots is the same though, but I mean, The spots are actually diagonally along the fence where it says 35.6 feet, as opposed to along that back wall where there's actually dumpsters right in the middle.
Right, so I'm going to assume you're not going to move the dumpsters where they presently are,
No,
correct?
actually, I was,
Okay, so when I look at the plans that you submitted, you're losing 4
Yeah.
parking spots right there. But that's one of the things, Mr. Chairman, that, you know, to your point, I think if we're going to have another meeting, I'd rather
Fix
see a
this.
more definitive plan here, that the addresses are correct,
okay,
that matches up with the application.
Sure.
I think you have a little homework to do with this.
sure.
But I'd really like to see, especially on the parking,
The way it is
exactly
exactly.
how many spots. I know you have everything,
Yeah, no,
it's
I
well
understand.
manicured, maintained, you got things marked off correctly. But when I look at this and then I look at the real thing, the two don't match
I
up.
understand.
So that would be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, that we get a better
Okay.
set of plans for the next meeting.
Right, and that is what we normally do.
Sure.
If you have to, it has to match up because
Exactly,
somebody,
yes.
you know, if anybody appeals it or looks at it,
Yes.
they're gonna wonder how we could approve something that doesn't match up, and we really can't. So if it took you a year to get this, I mean, do you think you're gonna be able to get this by the next meeting, or do you wanna put us on for a few meetings?
You know what, I'll get it. I'll
Yeah.
get it by you. How long did you say, I'm sorry?
When's the next meeting, Kim?
26, right?
April 26th, you've got a couple weeks, 2 weeks from tonight.
I think he'll do it for me because he kind of took a while for whatever personal reasons or whatever
Okay.
the company had.
Yeah, and I think it needs, you know, take out what's not there. I mean, it's hard to, even if your application matched it, it would be hard to approve it based on
I
what's
understand.
here, and just telling us, well, those aren't there anymore,
Okay.
that's not the purpose of the plot plan for the ZBA. We need to see what you're proposing.
Okay.
So we know what we're approving, and you know, to protect you, so you know what we're approving.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, so are we also looking at the two at 643 and he has 647 and 653? Are we entertaining both pieces of property to go from a 2 to a 3 and a 3 to a 4? I know Mr. Bienvenu mentioned a few things, but have those already been pre-approved, or are we voting on that?
Well, are you talking about voting on it at the next meeting?
Well, are we looking at those two pieces of property?
That's what we need clarified. I mean, his explanation,
I mean, the application says he's going from a 2 to a 3 and 3 to a 4, but is
Uh,
that true or not true?
2 to 3 and 4 to 5, actually,
I'm
it was. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yep. 2 to a 3 and a 4 to a 5, yep.
right, but just make sure that it's clarified on the plan, what you're looking to go to and where, and what excess things are gonna be on there. It doesn't match up, and it's hard to be able to support any decision that we make if we don't know what we're basing it on.
I understand.
If any questions you have through the process, you can call the building department and
Try to-
talk to the zoning officer, Kathy Murphy, and I'm sure she can direct you as to what we're looking for.
Alrighty.
But we really need to have accurate plans in front of us. And if you need more time, if it comes down to that and it's not gonna be done, you know, you could probably get, you know, one more continuance from that date.
Sure.
But I think Bill's right, you do have a lot of legwork to do between now and then, so.
Yeah.
Vez, anything?
Yeah, I do concur with Mr. Bailey. That is, the plan does not match up. There's a lot of things here. I thought it was only for 643, and now I learned that's also for 647 and 651, converted from a 4-family to a 4 to a 5-family. And the Bill was right. The dumpster was there. 2 dumpster, in fact, was there from on the parking.
Yes.
12, 13, 14, 15. Take it out. You have to clean up this plan.
Yeah.
Really. I really want to stress that. And the other things too is that the stack parking that we have here was 5 stack parking from 24 to 28. That's one hell of a crazy stack
Yeah,
parking.
yeah, I know.
You know, normally a 2 stack parking, we have questions in terms
Yes.
of granting it, but this is 5 stack parking. It's just one hell of a crazy stack parking. Well, you have to clean all these things up and come back. You know, I preferred you to have more time than just come back in 2 weeks and
Yes.
having this not complete and not clean. So,
Understood.
you know, I don't know about what other people think, but I say the next meeting, maybe the meeting up to the next meeting, because I'd rather have you come back with a clean
With everything, yes.
plans. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. The only other thing I'm saying, it's the thing that does match up, which, again, doesn't make sense to me, and I could be wrong. But you have TTF, and then he has TTF on the plan, it says traditional neighborhood district, and I could be wrong. Am I missing something? Is that how we normally describe it?
No. I believe he's in a TTF, but. it's
TTF,
I wrote TTF, but then I did write traditional,
Well, what I'm saying is your plot plan guy wrote it, and usually they track it from whatever we have at the city, so I'm wondering if maybe you guys are right and I'm wrong.
What's TNF? There is no TNF.
TTF, and it says, in parentheses, traditional neighborhood district. Mr. Lighties, maybe you can shed some light on this.
No, TTF,
Code actually speaks of a traditional neighborhood district.
Traditional
and then
neighborhood
it
two-family.
does a subsection.
So TTF would be a subsection of that?
Right.
Okay, well, that probably clarifies it, so, all right, so it's in and we need to verify that it's in a two, didn't we think it might be in a multifamily district?
it's kind of,
Okay.
right.
All right, and what, I guess the issue is if it's a pre-existing non-conforming, but before you do a lot of work, I mean, the first thing I would do if I were you, I'd verify whether or not you need to be before this board,
Okay.
as Rick had mentioned. And Corey, anything?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. I did spend some time at the site today, and Mr. Zagoras was on site, and he was very, very complying, I might add. But being on the site with the plot plan, you know what buildings he's referring to, but yes, the plan certainly needs a little fine-tuning with the, I don't think it's all that disastrous. The building numbers need to be fine-tuned in your parking, you know, because you don't have 5 spots that the vice chairman stated on the side of the building. You have 5 listed. I mean, it certainly can be used for something, but 5 is a
Yeah.
stretch, as he stated. The dumpster situation, as Mr. Bailey mentioned, I brought to your attention this afternoon. If somehow, too, what I'd like to see is that, you know, your property is so well maintained and manicured, if we can maybe get some fencing and lattice and hide that, it's a little unsightly. But it is necessary for the amount of units you have and your business, it's understood. But if we can somehow confine them, maybe it might not work for tenants as far as parking, but it's in the rear. It'd probably be best your employees park there.
Yes.
For obvious reasons. They sit all day, and if the dumpster does get picked up, what's it, once a week maybe?
Yeah, it's empty.
Right, so they can come out and move them real quick. So I'd like to see your employees set back in the rear, because again, it sits all day. But it's something I think can work. I mean, the property is really impeccable. I walked around all the buildings, and I am amazed. He certainly takes pride in his home, and I think he's doing his due diligence here. But as we all stated, we need to make sure we're voting on the right thing. If you might already be approved, we're going to let the law department determine that. But we got a little work here to do. But if you don't think 2 weeks is enough, May 10th is the next scheduled meeting. But whatever you feel is appropriate, I'm willing to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Kevin, any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, and Rick, anything else? I mean, are we heading down the right track, do you think, with?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, because again, reading from the city clerk that went to the registry of deeds, he requests, back then in 2003, it says, request for special permit and variance to convert 2 two-family structures to 3 families, to convert a 4-family to a 5 without the required parking spaces and parking setbacks. It was put together as a package. That I didn't realize he put that as a package when I spoke to him. I didn't realize the back building unit, 9 Phillips, or 643 Broadway, the way they call it, was involved with that. So he's already transformed that from a 2 to a 3. So I think we need some type of correspondence possibly from the law department to tell us whether he completed, you know, what he needed to complete by pulling a permit for one building where it was already rolled together. They weren't split up.
Right, and that's the paragraph I'm reading here, but that doesn't make sense with the application.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, to you, Rick, in your opinion, do you think that he just needs a CO?
He just, it's my opinion, he's done his due diligence. He went to the registry of deeds, he pulled a permit for the back building, And because they were put together as a package, he has started the process. Unlike if there were 3 different packages that were voted on, he did the back building, but he didn't do the 2 front buildings, time would run out. But he stopped the clock, in my opinion, by doing the back building.
Okay, so
Saying, Steve, 'cause he
I
has-
do, and I think, Kim, if we could put a request into the law department to clarify whether or not, whether he already has the relief that he needs and does not need to be before this board. And if he does need to be before this board, what does he need to be before the board with, based on the application? I mean, it may be you're fortunate enough that you don't need to do everything that we're going to be asking you to do, if in fact you do need relief from this board. So, and I think that's your best case scenario. So before you do all this work and spend any more money,
I'll go and talk
I would
to-
just make sure that there's not, you're not already there.
Okay.
All right, and, I just encourage you to stay in touch with the building department, and they can keep you updated
Alrighty.
as to what's going on. We'll put the request into the law department. That shouldn't take a whole lot of time, but you know what? They might even be able to get a decision from the building commissioner, or the interim building commissioner right now, as to, just looking at the paperwork and telling you what the status is. Maybe as simple as that.
Sure.
So I would do that tomorrow if I were you.
Now, Mr. Chairman, and you, Mr. Zagoras, I don't know what you feel is appropriate time-wise, 2 weeks or 4
I
weeks?
think May 10th, just to be on the safer side.
I think you'd be safer that way, yes. I think the board would be willing
Then
to
I could
comply with
correct
it.
everything for sure, and maybe I'll get good news before then, hopefully, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, so I need a motion to continue.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue till May the 10th, 2010.
Second the motion.
Okay, roll call, please, Kim.
Continue.
Continue to May 10th.
Continue to May 10.
Continue to May 10th. Continue to May 10th.
Okay, so you've been unanimously continued to May 10th. Anybody wishing to speak or address this board regarding that petition is encouraged to be here on May 10th. There'll be no further legal notices required or made. So I'll see you then, sir. If you have any
all
questions,
for
you
your
can call the building department. Thank you. Okay, and the next matter is a matter of review for Lowe's on Chelmsford Street. Attorney Leitis, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I have some pass-outs here.
Sure.
Not the usual fancy folder, but we ran out of those.
Mr. Zagoras, could you please approach and sign your extension, please? Okay, can you print, sign right there? You can sign.
Thanks. Okay, Attorney Leitis?
Judge Ladies Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. Did I say that yet? I'm not sure if I did.
Maybe.
I pray your indulgence for 1 second, Mr. Chairman. You know, from the minute I walked in the door here, I'm going to get a little whatever, but I saw a vacancy over on the right-hand side there, and this is my first meeting that I've been before this board since the passing of Mr. Knox. And I just kept looking there the entire time, and I just wanted to say how much of a great loss I think it was to this board and to the city, his passing, and what a wonderful job he did for the city, so.
We feel the same way, thank you.
Anyway, down to some business now. I'm here this evening in behalf of National Development. I have Sherry Clancy with me. You've met Sherry before. And I have a newcomer with me this evening, Randy Gaudette, who is the store manager of the Lowe's Home Improvement Center. And Rachel, of course, you all know by now, I think. After the last meeting that we had, if you recall, we were getting ready for the store opening and making sure that everything was in place and that National Development had met all its conditions under the permit that this board, the various permits that it granted, and the conclusion was that they had. The issue that arose at that point that we were concerned about was traffic and the traffic lights and police officers. So Rachel maybe already passed out the department's response, but I didn't know. I figured, I did now anyway. That's fine. What I did was, subsequent to the opening and all of the operational things that have happened, I wrote a letter to Mr. Bakey and at the Division of Planning and Development, the Assistant City Manager, indicating, because Mr. Proakis is no longer with us either, that the board wanted to have a review of how the opening conditions and traffic and everything went. And I think, as you'll see both from my letter asking what the city's results were and the results that came from the traffic engineer, everything has really been swimmingly, if I can say it. There's been absolutely not a single traffic problem that I've been aware of. Certainly the city police and the traffic engineer have confirmed that from their letter. And so obviously at this point now, we'd like to just make sure that this board clears that last condition in terms of, if you recall, I think that at one point there was supposed to be a traffic officer for 90 days there, which was a slight overkill, I think, obviously, I think I can say and be in deference to the work that the developer did here, any of you who've been up at that neighborhood with the new traffic pattern, the openings on the road, the new turning lanes and everything, the new traffic lights that the developer put up at the school further up Stevens Street, the traffic has been flowing, from what I've seen, very, very well. So that's one of the items we're just asking you to look at and just confirm that there's no need for any further traffic officer on duty at any time. And secondly, I have Mr. Gaudette here to just make sure that he just wants to tell you how things, wants to introduce himself and tell you how things are going, and also go over the operating conditions that were set by the board that Lowe's has agreed to, and tell you how those things are going. So
Great.
if I may, I'll introduce and get
Sure.
Mr. Gaudette up here.
Hi, I'm Randy Gaudette. I'm the store manager at Lowe's Home Improvement on 50 Lowe's Way in the city of Lowell. Just looking at the conditions, as far as, there was like 12 conditions that they wanted to make sure that we met during the operations. And going down through them, like condition 1 was as far as carts and carriages, to make sure that we maintained them in the lot. We have hired associates that is their job function, to maintain, bring them back in the building. So we're clearing them as the day goes, throughout the day of operations, and at the end of the day to make sure that they're all brought back inside the building as well. As far as the lighting illumination, we've taken care of that. The engineers and stuff, outside garden, I know was a concern, and they've changed lighting and everything to meet the needs of the outside garden center. The speakers in the parking area and outside lawn and garden, those were disconnected to make sure that we complied, so those are not operational. We did have a concern from a neighbor that did hear still audio from one of the speakers, and he came over and voiced his opinion. I went out with him, and we did several tests in the garden center in front of the building and stuff to let him, to make sure that all the speakers were off. But he was still concerned. We went behind the building, and there was a speaker by our receiving area, which is kind of in the back of the building, in the middle, and that was a concern. So we took care of that, even though it wasn't one of those locations, just to eliminate that speaker, so there wouldn't be a concern in the future. As far as The deliveries from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., that's one thing I just wanted to talk about a little bit this evening for operational purposes, and hoping that we could relook at those hours to help us out with our operations. What would really help us out if we could have operations from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. With the business has been very successful since we've opened, and we have a delivery service that we deliver appliances on box trucks. We also have a flatbed that we deliver from lumber to, could be block or different things like that to contractors. And if we could open up that window from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., it would really help us out with the operations. That way we can get our deliveries out on the road a little bit sooner, and especially as business grows, where we have deliveries coming in through the window, as far as from our RDC and from other vendors that bring in trailer loads of product. And as it gets busier, it's more difficult for us to manage that. And if we could revisit that to see if we could open up that window 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., be very much appreciated.
Okay, I mean, the only thing I can say to that is, I think we're on for review. I don't know that, at this point, that we have the authority to amend that. Maybe, if it depends how it was written.
I discussed that with Randy, and the long shot of it is I think we're going to file for,
Okay.
to bring up the condition on a formal basis with the public
Okay.
hearing. But I think he wanted to let you know the problem. that we
Sure,
have.
no, I misunderstood. I thought you were requesting us to do that tonight. We really don't. Okay,
Yep, thank you.
but we hear you, so, okay.
Okay. And as far as the other conditions, as far as our deliveries trucks, we do have them over towards Lowell's Way. It's not towards the Chelmsford Street side as far as parking, as part of the condition. Excuse me? Yeah, as far as the lights, illumination, they are set, so a half hour after closing that the lights go off as well.
And that's done automatically?
Yes.
And Rachel, there's no problem with the signage or anything? Everything's in compliance, as far as you know? The sign, okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update.
Thanks.
So that's it, Mr. Chairman. We just want, as I said, confirm that National Development has fulfilled all its requirements, and that basically, up to this point, Lowe's has met all its conditions. I did explain, as I just said a second ago, to Randy, that if Lowe's wanted to change, and the interesting thing is, and I guess from what he told me, I want to clarify it, he's talking about their own store deliveries, and my recollection was that the concern was the big 18-wheelers coming in early in the morning.
Right,
So-
from across the country with
Right,
big
right.
loads, and
So-
coming in at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think is what we discussed way back when, right?
Right. So I told him we'll bring it back if he wants, if the company decides they want to, and we'll have a full hearing on it and let you get a little bit more of what is important to him.
Okay, and what are you looking for as far as the police officers? Is that,
We're looking to, shall we say, dismiss the requirement for any further police duty, which arguably might have been for 90 days under the original grant, for 90 days after the operation began. And the board, at that point, modified the condition of 14 days, and I guess we just want to confirm that that's final and that's it, and there's no
Right.
further requirement.
yeah, I think
for-
that, I mean, from my visits to that area and driving through there, I think it flows actually better than it did before Lowe's was there, so, and you, as far as I can see, there's not any opposition here, so I think those neighbors would be here, or the city would be aware of it if there were any traffic problems. I think that was mostly the concern that I recall from the neighborhood. It wasn't so much with the project itself, it was, the disruption and the traffic pattern and the possible, accidents or something that may occur as a result of the
Right.
the reconfiguration of the street, and I don't think that's happened, so I don't have any problem with the, confirming that condition regarding the officer detail has been met and, no longer required, but Let me just open up to the public and see if anybody's here. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this petition, in favor? Or comment on the review, I should say?
Mr. Chair, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, just to wish to be recorded in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else wishing to comment at all, either for or against this review? And hearing and seeing no other input, that public hearing in that regard is closed. Any comments from the board? Bill, anything?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
And Vesna?
Well, I do concur with you, Mr. Chairman, that the traffic in that area is much better than even before Lowell was here. And I do concur also is that they have met all their requirements and that, there's no need for further police detail in that area.
Thanks. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in agreement with the Vice Chairman. I think Lowe's has done, quote, everything right. Honest to God, it's a great project. I remember it well. I've been on this board almost 8 years, and it's one of the only petitions that filled up the balcony up there. But I think those residents don't see any difference. I'm in that neighborhood daily. I don't see any other impact on traffic. I think what really pleases me is I think they're using the Lowe's Way entrance more so than Chelmsford Street. But it's really come out great. I'm very ecstatic about it, not the jobs and the convenience for the city residents. And to Lowe's, we're glad to have you. And I will certainly keep an open mind to your forthcoming consideration. Thank you very much.
Kevin, anything?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
And Rick, anything?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I think you've satisfied your requirements, Attorney Lights, with the review, and any other requests, we'll just wait to see if we get anything.
We thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we have the acceptance of minutes.
Yep, some minutes to approve, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed the minutes. I think all the other board members have as well. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 25th, 2010.
Okay, need a second?
I second it, sir.
Roll call to approve the minutes. Kim, please.
Approve.
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 Okay, the minutes for January 25th have been approved by the board. Any other business, Mr. Clerk?
No, that's not, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye, sir.
Any opposed? Oh, meeting adjourned.